And we are live. Welcome to episode 9 of the Red Hot Show. And what a wonderful show we have in store today. Jacko, very warm welcome to you, my friend.
Thank you, big fella. What a week. What a week it's been.
Yes, we said last week that we were either going to sit here very morbid today or very happy. And I'm ecstatic that it's the latter. We are very happy young men, and we're going to start today's show by discussing our general election thoughts and our reactions, immediate reactions, and also props to Big Saucy. He's literally nailed it to the number for the devout listeners that got to see his election prediction, as well as the full episode. You would have noted that he did call it to the number. So, you know, when you're getting your advice from a couple of Aussie laymen's, this is the place to go. So we're going to do that for a bit, and then we're going to go into the team that he's got behind him, Trumpy, and some of the things they've been touching on the last week in terms of where they're going to direct their efforts first and foremost. And then we're going to get into the markets and the response. You know, the Trump pump is a real thing, and we predicted it for a long time, and it's in full flight, and it's only seriously, it's just at the beginning. So lots of exciting things to unpack there, and then we'll round things out with saucy sips as always. So welcome to the show, episode 9. Let's do it, big fella. Tell me how you're feeling.
Feeling great, Nath. There's so much to unpack. It actually, prior to starting this show, it was a bit overwhelming because there's so many talking points to get through, I suppose, in the aftermath of that historic election win. But you know, I to give you my brief summary. One, it is quite nice to be validated in terms of predicting the result exactly and getting very close with the margins in each state too. I did a lot of modeling and research, particularly on non-response bias. So the polls get Trump wrong every time is basically the answer. And going with that theme in your modeling, you were bound to get closer than any pollster, which I did comfortably. If I was a professional pollster, I would have been top of the pack. So, yeah. that was quite satisfying. Yeah, I'll try to be modest. But Natho, the reasons, like, no one cares about that. The reasons why the result happened, that's the meat of the story. And you and I have talked a lot about the disconnect. You and I have talked a lot about how society increasingly seems to be or clearly divided. But the disconnect that emerges is really due to the system, including the media, including governments that a classic political class establishment governments pulling away and maybe being so far out of touch with the day-to-day struggles of the common man. So I think this election was a huge rejection of the system, the media elites included. You know, legacy media in this election has taken a hit that I'm not sure they can recover from. They are so out of touch, Natho. They have absolutely no clue, about the thoughts and about the feelings and the problems of the people that they're meant to be representing when they're speaking. So I think this election was validation of the fact that, you know, we've seen the swing happen for a very long time. And I think it's also validation of the fact that we're quite in touch and attuned to what people care about, really, when you get to the bottom of it. Trump winning the popular vote is just incredible. And it speaks to the public consciousness rising. It speaks to a representative who's a genuine leader, who's actually trying to help the people that he's representing. And people saw that, people trust that, and that's why. And the lefty reactions, by the way, are hilarious. I'm not sure if you've seen the vids, but anyway, Natho, that's my very quick summary. We'll break it down, but it's satisfying. But now the real work begins, and there's positive signs already.
It does. It does indeed. And the lefty breakdown, I want to actually, my thoughts. We're going to get into, and I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the policy / tasks that you're most excited to see fulfilled. But before we do that, I wanted to just unpack the whole lefty reaction stuff. And I think it was funny. One of the bigger pages here in Australia, bigger podcast, the Hard Yarn podcast, we've been talking a fair bit. And he put out a post on the importance now of reducing the division. Okay. It's crystal clear what side of the ledger was correct and what side of the ledger was incorrect in their thought processes and where they've landed. But I want to start to live by the MO of unity rather than division. And this theme needs to be pushed, because how are we ever going to heal? And I think he made a good point in the fact that the people to blame here are the media and the institution. Let's not point the finger at these poor individuals who have been corrupted, brainwashed, indoctrinated, and are, in some cases suicidal at this result, which is so not necessary. But this is exactly the stuff you just touched on: the out of touch media, the insidious media, the insidious institutions. All these things have collaborated and amalgamated in this destruction of vulnerable people. And how can we fix that moving forward? Because whilst we're sitting here on our high horse, very happy, there is a lot of people that are suffering and very upset because they're confused and they've been, quite frankly, they've been duped. They've been duped. It's not their fault. And without going into too much detail, but when I was at church on Sunday, it was such an apt theme. The pastor was talking about how we've sort of won this battle without being too political. He did a very good job metaphorically breaking this down, but he said, you as one of the people that have got it right have a vessel that's about to catch this tsunami of hope and prosperity. But you as the vessel need to be willing to bring other people on the vessel with you, the weaker, the more vulnerable people. And I thought it was one of the most beautiful messages that's really stuck with me the last week. Let's not move through this next period pointing the finger and aggravating the vulnerable and the ones that got it wrong. We need to be able to bring them onto the vessel so that we can all ride the wave of prosperity. Otherwise, there won't be unity. So that's my feelings post-election. I echo all your sentiments. But I also call now for unity and healing. And that can only be done through the righteous and the ones that actually got it right, which is us, that are in tune with all of it. So we have a big responsibility now. But that's my 2 cents, my friend. And I would pass it over to you because I'm keen to get your thoughts on the things you're most excited to see implemented post-inauguration.
Yeah, well, just touching on that point, Nath, it is part of me thinks it's quite hard to sit here and not have some sort of rebuke and harsh words directed towards the people that, let's face it, they really lowered their colours in this election, and they said things that they can never take back. Some really dark, really devious things were done. But so I'm sitting here and, with a really clear opportunity to berate these media figures mostly, and also these politicians that really
But they're
stooped.
institutional. They can be blamed. They're not societal individuals that have been, taken advantage of, basically.
That's right. But we've been pointing this out for weeks, quite diligently. We've been pointing out the failings, the blatant failings, and the horrific, the horrific role of legacy media in its attempts to control the narrative and brainwash certain people. But I don't want that to be the theme today, because you're right. I think the message of hope and positivity really needs to be the prevailing sentiment here. And Nath, a little story before we get into policy and the next steps. The day after the election, as you know, where we work, where the office is in Sydney, it's quite a liberal area, and I thought I was imagining it. But the day after the election, I kept seeing these really despondent-looking people on the streets, like it was as if everyone had a family member who had passed away. That's the closest that's the closest thing that I could tell seeing these people. And I looked closer and I thought, this can't possibly be the reaction to the election. And sure enough, as I was waiting for my coffees and as I was passing people on the street, I realized it was. I realized these people were literally in a state of mourning. And Nath, that's sad, because the reason that's sad is because the catastrophizing of the media, the alarmist messages, the Trump derangement syndrome, frankly, has gotten its grips and claws on so many people. Now, as you went to the church, and clearly a great message was delivered, whereby it is up to the people that are probably more, in touch with reality and common sense. I don't say that to boast. I say that, knowing that we've got our heads pretty tightly screwed on at this point, and we're pretty attuned to what's going on, and certainly the forgotten class and how they feel. But Nath, there are going to be people that miss out. And we know that. There are going to be people that, unfortunately, it's a sad reality, are too far gone. But I do think that's, a very small fraction of the nation. So what of the Western world. So what people need to do, people like you and me, need to just engage in civil conversations, talk about why this isn't the end of the world, and in fact you can be quite optimistic even. And let's discuss. Let's debate, the policies. Let's debate what's going to happen. And I think at the conclusion of those discussions and debates, you'll be left thinking, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be so petrified of what's about to happen. So I think we do have a job to, I guess, spread the message of what I would call rationality around. And I think that's quite a big task, by the way.
It is. And I've encountered a few of them up here as well in Byron. You could tell it was just this despondence. A normal jovial person, a couple of them at the golf club that work behind the bar. This bloke, Tommy, lovely guy, but I know that he's a bit of a lefty. And I reckon I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure he was pretty despondent because of that. It is sad. It is sad. But the only, the beacon of hope is, look how many people jump from one side of the fence to the right side of the fence this time round. Tons. Yeah. Tons and tons. And they'll keep coming in droves. You're never going to have, you're always going to have the two polarizing ends. It's this huge chunk that was stuck here when it should be stuck sort of here. That's where we want to be for logical discussion and debate. For so long, this end of the spectrum, and I think we get backdoor media. You touched on it in the intro. The fact that we've got, very likely, Patrick Bet-David was talking about this during the week. Next election, it's probably going to be decided on podcasts. Debates. Fuck CNN and ABC and all the other crap. It's moderated and rigged anyway. It's going to have to be long form, proper discussions, talk about your fiscal policy, your societal policy, how's just a full, proper 3-hour chat. Maybe your Rogans or your Patrick Bet-Davids even host them. Who
Yeah.
knows? We could be in a very different world by then.
And also
Because
getting to know the real people, Nath. Like, you had a real authentic person for all of his flaws coming up against a political robot, to put it very, very politely. So, I think that was the Democrat failings are something we won't get into, but you could literally spend 7 podcasts talking about the absolute catastrophe of an administration and campaign that they held. But I do think, and if you look at the voter demographics that shifted to Trump for this election, and I think it's reflective of the Western world as a whole. You're seeing that it's particularly those people that are real people, with everyday problems, not the elites. Clearly, it's who control the narrative. It's the everyday people pushing back against the elites. It's a clear as day message. It couldn't be more clear if you break down the voter demographics. And so, Nath, yes, whilst it is our responsibility to enlighten people and to just have conversations with people, very sensible and civil and rational discussions about where the world's going, it's also the role of the sensible elite class on the left and the champagne socialist types to engage in a deep, dark period of introspection and understand why they're so out of touch, understand why they can't engage, and they simply are disconnected from society. I think that's going to have to be an independent journey for these people that are losing their way slightly because of that disconnect. So yes, it's up to us to help bring people along, but a lot of people are going to have to help themselves come to grips with why people think the way they do and what problems people are going through. And it's not going to be an easy overnight thing, but it's a critical thing for Western society to be functioning in a really, really prosperous way once again.
Yeah, well said. Well said. And more specifically now, what are you most keen to see implemented from all the promises? And there has been a lot of promises last week. It's just it's a barrage of promises. So I'm very keen to hear your thoughts on give me a couple of things that really pique your interest and you're excited to see done.
Yeah, well, the first thing is, how nice is it to see a proactive leader? I mean, it's been a week and he's been so clear outlining policy. He's been hard at work talking to foreign leaders from all corners of the world. And on that latter note, yes, I think global peace is what I'm quite looking forward to, Nathan. I don't think that's an outrageous comment or prediction. I think Trump and the way he leads and his style is very effective in foreign diplomacy, as I've said for weeks. So I do expect and will hold him accountable, will hold the administration accountable to solving the global tensions and global conflicts that are currently happening. And I'm a pacifist, so I come from the lens of wanting the wars to be over as quickly as possible, so long as the concessions aren't extreme or severe. So I expect peace will once again be achieved in the Middle East, as it was last time he was running the show. I expect the Russia-Ukraine war will come to an abrupt halt, which I think, again, so long as the concessions aren't extreme, Ukraine have to concede somewhat. I think that, unfortunately, that's clear. But so long as the concessions aren't extreme, it's a terrific result. And if he does get that done quickly, well, he should win a Nobel Peace Prize. So anyway, so that's one thing, Nathan, I'm really looking forward to. And then look, clearly it's this free speech movement. Clearly it's, and small government, getting rid of the red tape in the government to enable, business to thrive, to enable government to be more effective. And thank goodness he has both the House and the Senate now. So real action can be achieved.
That's a huge thing. Huge.
Yeah.
Didn't have that. He didn't have that in even in 2016, did he?
No.
No, exactly. So we can really get things done now.
Yeah.
Continue
So Nathan, that's pretty. I mean, look, there's a lot of specific items regarding economy. We'll get to markets later in the show, so I won't dive too deep on that. But I'm excited for the cultural shift.
Yeah.
Cultural shift is a big one for me, and that includes free speech. It includes the ability to engage in a functioning society where people can disagree. So, I think culture. I think it's the train kind of coming back a stop, or the pendulum swinging slightly the other way that I'm most looking forward to. But economic prosperity, I think, will happen. I really back Trump's plans. I think peace is achievable, and I think a peace for the West is achievable too, at the expense of the few that might get left behind. So they're the very high level items that I think are really exciting.
Yes.
What about you, mate?
Well, I obviously echo your sentiments. I'd probably put just underneath the free speech stuff, more specifically, the clearly outlined plan to dismantle the censorship industrial complex.
Yeah.
It was just so thorough on that long video put out last week. Just injecting the right resources in the right places to ensure that is dismantled as quick as possible. The looming prospect of a digital bill of rights, massive. I mean, that can't be overstated. And then the big thing for me, which I spent a lot of time this week doing some work on, is the looming idea that the Federal Reserve, could be in the crosshairs. Now, it's for those listeners that don't know too much about it. They basically were founded in 1912 by a lot of private bankers that ran the world back then. Got your links to your Rothschilds and whatnot. But before then, it was a very prosperous period for America. And Trump spoke about this in the podcast with Joe. I can't remember his name, but one of the presidents during the 1800s was called the Tariff King. He loved tariffs. And during that period, pre and post Civil War in the US, was extremely economically prosperous. They're in a surplus for most of the years, and a lot of the revenue is driven by tariffs. Now, of course, we live in a global economy now. Things have changed. You can't completely rely solely on tariffs. He was running tariffs last time. There would need to be some clever economic reforms within corporate taxes and other taxes to pull something like this off. But by what I'm saying, what I'm leading towards it by what he could pull off is zero income tax, baby. So this has been done before. There was no income tax in the 1800s pre the Fed. And as we know, it's a corrupt machine that just prints money and props up fake value, essentially. And their debt is a testament to that, and it's a ticking time bomb. Now, I know for Trumpy, who wants to leave the best legacy possible in this 4 years, he's going to have to do something. I just don't think a surplus is going to cut it. Like, imagine, all right, yeah, Sweeto was the first president to get a little surplus since Bill Clinton in 2001. I don't think that's really legacy-making material. The only way you can dismantle the Fed, because they operate outside the law, you can't just go in and sack Jerome Powell, the head of the Fed, and start to gut it. You can't do that. They are effectively lawless. The only way you can get rid of them is if the Congress, the House, unanimously vote that it's no longer needed. It's no longer required to drive fiscal policy in the states. Now, this is a huge idea, and it hasn't been, like, there's been no concrete things laid out, but he's toyed with the idea of zero income tax. Alex Joneses, a few others have really been diving into the prospect of what would it look like if the Fed was gone. To me, that could usher in. You talk about golden age, you talk about, rocket launching lower socioeconomic people into the middle class and getting the middle class to prosper again. If you pull something like that off, you're looking at a very different world, because the rest of the Western world will eventually have to fold and follow, not with zero income, but the fiscal policy would have to change if the successes of America drastically change. And then, of course, the debt problem's a big one, but you'll have to stay tuned for my solution to the $36 trillion of debt in part 3 of End the Fed, which is coming out later this week. But they're the things I'm most excited about, big fella. Of course, war, getting rid of war, and destroying the censorship industrial complex is massive. Free speech, but also just I would love to see some drastic economic reforms that could actually cut through and see these less fortunate people prosper.
Yeah, well, I think that's the perfect segue into the team he's assembling. I think again, the alarmists that talk about Trump, Nath, they probably should look at who he's actually appointing. And if they look with an objective lens, I think it's very difficult, near impossible, to say that it's not an exceptionally talented and capable and exciting team that he's assembling around him. I mean, on every front. And you talk about abolishing income tax. I think there's an expectation maybe that he gets it below 20%, even if he can't dismantle the Fed entirely.
15 was what he's been thrown around.
15 would be a very good effort. And I'm not saying that it's impossible to achieve what you're crying out for, but 15% income tax would be, phenomenal, really. And I think this is where you do look at the types of people around him. I mean, the obvious one on that point is Elon Musk, who has proven time and time again to be one of the more astute business people and genius minds of our generation. And I think one underrated aspect of Elon's business acumen is his cost-cutting ability. I think he is one of the best trim the fat people that's prospered in business over the last century. He doesn't do waste, Elon, and he's exceptionally good at looking at the books in order to run a really tight, cost-efficient show. So I'm excited for that, Nath. I think spending will be really responsible from government for the first time in a long time if Elon has anything to do with it. But yeah, Trump's making some seriously quality appointments across the board, not just on fiscal policy.
Yeah, I think Elon will completely gut a lot of the unnecessary bodies and minor institutions within government, which is really exciting. Bobby the same. Bobby's then going to go in and just absolutely rip through anything environmental. Except, please, Bobby, don't touch the oil. Bobby can go do what you want, Bobby, but just don't touch the oil. So I'm super excited. Some of the small things, like, we talked about this on the phone the other day, these fringe theories that you guys, a lot of people have sprayed me for the last couple of years, that fluoride and chlorine in water is deadly and dangerous, is now not fringe theory. This is literally right at the forefront of political discussion, and Bobby is going to get that shit out of the tap water across the board. And lo and behold, we have, you're still fucking sucking it back, mate. Shocker. But you'll come around, mate. It takes time. It takes time for you to.
Well, look, I probably didn't concede this at the time. I recall a very strong argument from your side of the table on that particular point. But look, I'm happy, Natho, on the Bobby Kennedy front, whilst he might be wrong about some things, I don't want to start there. I'm not trying to spray him, but all I'm trying to say is that it's great that someone is investigating and questioning things that absolutely should be looked into. And, that's my hope for him in that role is actually, I don't necessarily trust the establishment and the fact that they have our best interests at heart. So if there is someone that's diving into these institutions and looking at any level of corruption or any kind of malpractice, I think that is a good thing. So long as there are good people in those organisations. So long as a lot of good people keep their roles, and a lot of good people are there to lend, RFKJ the help he needs, then I think that can only be a positive. So yeah, I really hope he prospers in that role, and it's exciting to just have some truth seeking in government, I think, and really conducting an audit of all these institutions that people like me, for a long, long time, have just trusted blindly. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, COVID was the greatest gift, mate. That's what sent a lot of us on our truth-seeking paths. But, mate, he's unequivocally the most informed, capable person for this job. And I'm just thrilled that he can go in there and just fucking dismantle this shit and expose them for what they are. Anyway, should we move into the markets?
Very, very happy to move into the markets, big fella. Let's do it.
And this segment, as always, is sponsored by Cashew, our company where the best stock picks are provided to you every month. And I'm just bringing up our latest one, which we touched on last week for the few listeners that we have on the full show. You'll remember that we talked about DocuSign. That was the first free pick that I've given on our show. And DocuSign, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, just bringing it up now, bear with me, is up. We are up where are we? Yeah, we've absolutely pumped. I mean, the rest of the market's pumped as well, but DocuSign's gone up about 15% in a week. Now, for a stock, that's pretty significant.
Yeah.
Big pump. Obviously, off the back of Trump winning, it's just reflected across the markets in general, but specific industries that have thrived since his victory have been everything to do with defense. The Cashew stock pick there in Protect America, there's a couple others, so go check them out. And the Bitcoin mining and anything to do with crypto sort of mining and in crypto infrastructure stocks have gone really, really well. Your oils, drill baby drill, has been exceptional. So I wanted to get your thoughts initially on the economic reaction to the win, and anything that's piqued your interest, Saucy, within the stock space. Because for me, I've been pretty honed in on the crypto space. So I'd like to talk a bit about that. You'd probably be best versed to talk about what you've seen within the markets, other than the big winner on the Cashew Protect America pack. So, yeah, inform the listeners, my friend.
It's well, I sit here today, Nath, not startled, but absolutely flabbergasted by the extremely strong reaction to Trump's win in the markets, crypto, as you mentioned. But my goodness, it's hard to know where to look, Nath, because all you're seeing is just green sticks, and they're very, very steep. These things are vertical. So look, clearly there's a lot of people that think Trump is going to be a huge winner for the stock market. He's clearly the first pro-crypto president, which a lot of people are very excited about, which you'll dive into later. I know my Bitcoin portfolio is looking rather nice at this very moment. But yeah, look, Nath, we've touched on it for the last 7 weeks. It's clear that the oil players are winning. We're talking Exxon. There are some very safe blue chip stocks that are looking really good. Chevron also, I think, has responded quite nicely. And then the automobile industry is another one Trump's pushed really hard for. So I'm looking out to see GM and Ford and establishment automobile manufacturing companies like that, to see how they fare in the next month or two.
Yeah,
I expect, I expect the companies that, Trump has alluded to in this campaign, I think are the ones to keep an eye on. Defense stocks, as you mentioned, I think we've talked about it a lot, but Lockheed Martin certainly are very, very well positioned to prosper. And was it Raylon? Was that the
Raytheon.
other Raytheon? Sorry,
they've actually they're pretty steady. Like they haven't
Yeah.
received the same volatility as the specific crypto stuff and some of the other more in line with policy, the direct policy that he's mentioned. They haven't really popped as much, but
yeah, well, I think that's a good thing. I mean, my read
is.
on that, by the way, is the market's I think probably already factored in the obvious industries that are primed to thrive.
I think that's great. Yeah, that's how to look at it.
I'm not sure the market has thought about the adjacent industries,
No.
and not that defense, cybersecurity are adjacent, but they're probably not the first things you think about, just in light of the campaign messaging. So, yeah, I do think there's opportunity. I think there's a lot of opportunities, Nath. It is quite overwhelming sitting here talking to you about which stocks and which sectors are going to thrive, because I think there's a lot of green to come, and that's terrific. I think, and India, by the way, not sure you saw Modi's message to Trump in light of the victory, but it was a very it was like, my great friend Donald, I'm so thrilled that, so he's clearly he's clearly a happy man. I think the India-US relationship will strengthen. So India, I think across the board, what I'm trying to say is this won't just have ripple effects in the US. I really do think there are a lot of countries on the stock market front, at least, should be very, very happy with the 78-year-old redhead running the show. So, yeah, Nath, it's there's a lot to cover, but look, you've got the more important bit of this. I think crypto is the really, really exciting little segment in the markets front this week, because my goodness, it's been crazy.
It's just been wild. And we'll pop this. I don't want to even consume the full screen here with the charts. We'll get that overlaid later, but yeah, Bitcoin just smacking all-time high after all-time high. It was flirting this morning. I was watching it eagerly with 90K, and it did a bit of retracement last night. I was watching, so during the day for the US, but then it just ripped again back up towards that sort of 90K threshold. And the majority of the bigger large cap coins, like your XRPs, your Ethereums, as it stands, they're all sort of following this pattern. They're all following Bitcoin side by side right now. Bitcoin goes up, they move up proportionally. But what's super cool is the smaller cap and mid cap ones are also moving along, but not quite as rapidly. But as I've got my head around this ecosystem the last year and a half, what tends to happen is Bitcoin is already very expensive for retail, right? It's bloody $90,000 for a coin. As this keeps ascending, and it will, we're officially, in my opinion, we are in the bull run. We're at the start of the crypto bull run. Unless there's some catastrophic black swan event, economic crash, whatever, there's always a chance of that, small chance now. But we're looking at a really good, prosperous bull run, I think, for the next year, really. It's just going to keep going. What happens is once Bitcoin sort of taps out around its top, so it might double, it might get up to sort of 140K or something per coin. I don't really see it getting anywhere beyond double where it is now. It might, but not by much. So a 2x is like amazing for Bitcoin because it's already so expensive. What tends to happen towards the back end of that surge is the money then starts to come out and rotate into the smaller projects, which causes what the enthusiasts proclaim as altcoin season. And you can bundle your XRPs, your Solanas, and all that sort of in it. They are pretty large cap now. But all the lower price tokens benefit off the back of the flattening of Bitcoin at the top. So you get the best of both worlds. You really sort of ride up with Bitcoin until it taps out, and then the money cycles back out of Bitcoin into the altcoins, and that's when you see these huge, disproportionate, volatile pumps. And it's already sort of happening. The last day, we're seeing some cycling of money into these smaller projects. You know, one of my ones that I hold, which I said last week for the 12 listeners that listen, I said SUI, SUI was one that is competing with Solana for probably the highest on-chain volume in the entire crypto space. Meme coins, you know, smart contracts, lots of different projects built on chain. Solana, that's the reason it did so well, is because it dominated that space and it got so much volume. But SUI is basically a much better version of Solana. So I can see it doing extremely well. It's still not, you know, near priced out on any of these projects. That's what's super exciting about this for anyone listening. These projects that we're talking about, your SUIs, your XRPs, your utility tokens, they're all poised for serious growth this bull run. And they're not, you know, they're very appealing to retail buyers because they're still at attractive prices. I'm not going to give them all away because I'm going to do a little ebook, but another really interesting one that I think has huge upside is Ondo, ONDO. They're one of the leaders in the tokenization space, so tokenizing assets. I do believe that they are partners. Let me just double check this with the big boys. They are, yeah. So they're partners with BlackRock, and BlackRock, big part of what they want to do in the next few years is start to tokenize assets, tokenize real estate. Whether it's insidious or not, it doesn't matter. We're going to move down a sphere of being able to tokenize things. One really exciting point for the listeners, and maybe for you, Jack, as well, is, you know, there's a couple of industries that are really exposed to copyright, movies and music, which are going to be omnipresent in our lives forever, really. But one of these great use cases of like tokenizing assets is tokenizing those creations, right? And they're missing out on royalties all the time. But if you put these things on the blockchain, you can manage royalties a lot better. This is something that hasn't really started happening yet, but it will happen in the future. Much like a house, right? You know, it should be quite easy in the near future to buy portions of houses through crypto. You know, like you can already do that. You can buy small percentages. There's real estate investment trusts and whatnot. That's fine, but it's not as liquid or maneuverable as having something like that on the blockchain. You know, we wake up in the morning and go, oh, sweet. You know, that property that I've got a small chunk in has gone up 5%. I might cash that out, you know? So your number plate idea that you floated a few, 6 months ago, I think that could be done on there as well. So there's some really exciting projects, and I just hope that people this time round dive in a bit more and educate themselves on the use cases of all these amazing technologies and just position themselves with a little bit of capital. You don't have to go crazy, but I can tell you now, if you just look at I'm going to pull up the screen here because this will give you the best visualization of where I think the whole industry is going as a whole. Share screen. We're going to go crypto total market cap here.
It's going to be a big number.
Yeah. Now, that's not right. Excluding. I don't want that. Crypto total market cap. Here we go. So we're at nearly 3 trillion, right? Now, Bitcoin's like most of that, of course, and Ethereum. But this space, to give you an understanding of where it's heading, this is probably, and this is conservative, already been estimated to be by some big wigs, around 5 trillion by the end of this year. So 5 trillion is only a week ago more than double the entire industry I think that will happen. I think we'll hit 5 trillion before the end of the year. That means that pretty much every single project, bar donkey meme coins and shitty projects, is going to at least go between 50% to give you 50% to 100% return, in my opinion. Not every project, of course, you could do your due diligence, but the size of the market is so small. So small. This probably will be, by 2030, over $100 trillion industry. Again, conservative. Once the legal clarity kicks in for this space, which again is on the top of the list for Trump, he wants crypto clarity pushed through the Senate ASAP. And I think that will happen early next year. And there is literally, I shit you not, there is probably $500 quadrillion, so $500 trillion across real estate, stocks, derivatives, everything, sitting on the sidelines right now, waiting for legal clarity. And once that legal clarity kicks, all of the institutions, all the big money is just going to flood into this space, and it will absolutely explode. And that's honestly what's going to happen, in my opinion. If you position yourself well across a variety of different assets, you can't go wrong. This is the future. I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's like investing in the internet before the internet. So, food for thought. Did that ever share that screen?
It did not, but your I think your speech was compelling enough. It was, no, I look, yeah, I think for the crypto enthusiasts, Nate, you know, like yourself, and I'm close to that camp. I do think there's huge room for optimism. What's been holding back the industry? You know, we always talk about the tokens with actual utility and proper use cases that can actually really disrupt the way in which the world operates and the processes that define, you know, that define various industries. Once things like the SEC are on side and on board, you know, I think Trump's relationship with Putin and Xi is also critical. I think Russia and China will possibly come back into the crypto fold, which is not insignificant at all. National Bitcoin stockpile, and as you say, all the other tokens move along. Alt season happens, yes, but if Bitcoin's rising, ultimately that means it's a very healthy market. And yeah, Nathan, I do. I think it's an exciting time to be a crypto believer and a crypto holder. And also, you know, if you don't understand it that well, then clearly stocks, you can win in the stock market too. I think in the next 4 years, it's a really exciting time to have some exposure. I believe, and you know, you've got a real leader pushing for things quite hard, which is certainly a change from the last 4 years. So, yeah,
bang on, my friend, bang on. Shall we move into saucy sips?
Indeed. Let's do it, my friend. So, again, for our few handful of listeners that know the game, I'll just intro it for the new listeners. So, I'm going to give Nath a handful of names, and he has to first decide whether he wants to have a drink with them, yes or no. Drink at the bar, and then he'll have a table full of people that he has to, you know, whoever's at the bar with him that he's chosen, he has to determine what he would get them to drink. So, Natho, there's going to be, again, there's usually a theme, but there's going to be a very distinct theme for this one, and that is the crypto world. So the first one's a double hit. Do you remember that, you know, The Social Network, the movie, the classic Facebook story of the Winklevoss brothers?
Yes.
Would you have a drink with Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss?
Yeah, I would. They also made squillions from Bitcoin, didn't they?
Yes. In the last 2 days, I think they would have made roughly 150 million.
Yeah, I definitely would. They seem like snakes, but I'd love to sit down and have a drink with them and suss them out. Yeah, I would drink. I would have a drink with them. The Winklevosses.
Excellent. Now, this is an interesting one. Do you know the firm MicroStrategy? Major. I'm pretty sure. I could be getting the name wrong. Apologies if I am, but they're a major Bitcoin buyer, one of the largest in the world.
That's probably where I've heard of them.
Yeah, and a guy very, very closely connected with that firm is a prominent Bitcoin holder called Michael Saylor.
Yeah, Michael Saylor, I know him well. Yeah, he loves it.
Would
Wow,
you
it's
get a beer
ripped.
with? Would you get a beer with Michael Saylor?
I would. He's a massive Bitcoin maxi though, but wow, that's pumped. So there's just for the listeners on us. If you want stock exposure to a company like that, they're up 80% the last month.
Wow,
80%, crazy. But yes, I would have a beer with Michael Saylor. I always see him on all the videos that I watch, but he's just a massive Bitcoin maxi, mate. And it's pretty funny. He's like, Bitcoin will get to $20 million. It's like, I don't know. I just think there's got to be, I would drink with him because I'd like to know what he really thinks. Like there's always a media narrative, right? He's probably paid off or he's got vested interest in pushing the narrative through media, obviously. So yeah, be interesting to see what he actually thinks, what exposure he has to what projects he has exposure to aside from Bitcoin. But yeah, definitely interesting cat.
now I'm pretty sure I'll know the answer to this one, but you might surprise me. SEC Chair Gary Gensler.
Oh, gee. I did a funny video on that last week. They didn't get much traction, but I just enjoyed it too much, so I had to do it. But I can't wait till that fucker gets fired. He just looks like an absolute little weasel, like a snarly little weasel that just enjoys enforcing the law. You know, he just seems like a scumbag parking ticket officer that just loves handing out tickets and just yuck. So, you know, maybe I would get a drink with him so that I could glass him. No, I'm joking. I wouldn't do that. But I would. I'd at least pour a bit of beer on him, I reckon. He just seems like such
Gary,
a weasel.
Yeah, he does. He does have that like evil character energy, I would say. Now to round it out, Natho, it's slightly connected, but head of the Fed, Mr. Powell.
He seems even worse, mate. He actually seems quite dark. I mean, it's really, yeah. I mean, I guess that the context to this would be, there's probably a new context we should employ within Saucy Sips is, if I have a drink with the person, do I get unfettered access to the truth?
Oh.
Because if I do, then I would really like to have a drink with him. But if I don't, and I just, it's just like a blokey sort of drink and chat, then no, he wouldn't make the list. But if in these chats I sort of get complete access to truth and maybe it's almost like they can't, what's said in the room stays in the room and never leaves the room, I would definitely get a drink with him.
Well, let's leave Mr. Powell off the list for this week, but starting from next week, I think that context will be included. I think that's very, very clever. So, Nathan, you're at the bar, and the Winklevoss boys have engaged in the ultimate stitch-up and made you pay for the first round of drinks. Very tight of them. But what are you getting Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, Michael Saylor, and Gary Gensler from the bar?
I don't think did I put Gary in the list?
You said you'd have a drink. You said you'd have a drink with him.
I don't know if I'm drinking with him, but he can come to the bar and then we'll all just throw a beer. So I'll buy everyone a beer first, and then Gary, I'll buy him a beer so that he's at the bar, and then we'll all throw a beer on him. And then the Winklevosses,
the Winklevi, as they're affectionately known,
the Winklevi. They sound like a kind of, they got that Bond kind of complex, maybe a vodka martini shaken not stirred vibe. And And then Michael Saylor, he seems like a blokey bloke. I'd probably just get if we're in the States, some nice American lager, a pint. I don't know if they do pints there. Do they do pints?
No, I don't think they do. I think they do.
Yeah, well, whatever the largest one is. Gary's already heading out the door because he's splashed in beer. And that's it, isn't it? It's the Winklevi and Big Gaz.
That's it, mate.
Michael Saylor.
Vodka martinis and lagers all around. And I'm sure a lot of chat about XRP.
Yeah, well, that'd be awesome chat because I'd love to know exactly what they think the industry's going to do besides Bitcoin.
And for the listeners that aren't aware of Nathan's current holding in XRP, he's had a nice little day. Well, he's had a nice night whilst he slept. I think what went up 20%, Nath?
Yeah, it was the biggest mover yesterday. She hit 70 cents yesterday and then bounced back down, and now this morning it touched 74 cents this morning US, and it's sitting at 72 at the moment, which is the highest I've had it since I've held. I think my average buy price in US cents is around 48 cents US. So it's just fair to say I'm very far up, and I don't see for the people that are interested in XRP, the people that have somehow got to the end of this video. It's my biggest holding, and I don't think it'll ever go lower than once it cracks $1 this time. I don't think it's going below $1 again. My price target for it is probably between $5 to $7 US is my price target before the end of the year / early next year. I think it'll break its all-time high. That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. That's Saucy Sips, eh? Good stuff.
And that's episode 9, big fella. A very memorable one.
Awesome.
Huge.
I love that. Great stuff.